I want to read one chapter, and it's called "The Elderly Are People Too." Are you old enough to remember the days when, as young people, we would think in terms of an old man or an old lady of 60? Well, now that I'm 18 years past that age, you can work that out, can you? I naturally think differently. I've come to prefer the word mature rather than old or elderly. It is said that seniors always consider elderly to be 10 years beyond their present age.
Yes.
A good concept. Transition into old age is not easy. No change is easy. Even young people are happier in their comfort zone. However, the passing of time leaves us no choice but to accept life as it is, and in consequence, accept change as inevitable. How is it handled depends upon our attitude. We have to look for the best, embrace the good, and deal with the not so good. The not so good, however, can be caused by the attitude of the general populace. The elderly are often looked at in a negative light. Some people consider being old as those close to or even surpassing the generally accepted life expectancy. Yet it is neither a biological or chronological function of the years one has lived, or even the physiological changes related to those years, but it tends more to be a social concept. Generally, if you ask seniors, you find that they do not feel their actual age. Is that right?
Right.
Right. Glad you agree with me. It is usually the feeling of a 40-year-old mind in a 70-year-old body. Although many older people will express satisfaction and fulfillment in their life regardless of how old they feel. Whatever you think about the words old or elderly, I have learned that seniors cannot be categorized into one big group and labeled as being past their shelf life date. Probably the biggest disservice rendered to seniors is the equating of physical incapacity with mental abilities. The two should never be equated. The agility of the mind is unrelated to the mobility of the body. I can attest to this disservice when my wife, who has severe mobility problems, attempts to order her food in a restaurant. I get the third person she or her response, such as, "What would she want? What about her?" as though she cannot speak for herself. I give a very simple but gentle answer. Her has a name, and it is Rita, and she is quite competent to make her own decisions. Rita has all her mental faculties, is sharp as a tack, and has not lost her wit or sense of humour. Unfortunately, because of her lack of mobility, there are those who insist that her physical condition conveys mental incapacity, which is far from the truth. Regrettably, this is a common occurrence. We are not alone in this. A friend who has now passed on, and you will know him, he was Doug Bennett. You remember, he used to sit at our table. A friend who has now passed on experienced the same thing. He used a walker or a cane, but when eating out with his daughter, she was always asked what her father would like. It was not until he got out his credit card to pay the bill that it was recognized that he had some semblance of intelligence. Almost finished. It cannot be emphasized too much. Mental deficiencies should never be equated with physical disabilities. Sadly, the concept many have of the elderly is that they have run their course, are now worn out, and should be treated accordingly. All they need is rest and care. They need to be allowed to sleep at will, sit around or putter in the garden, passing the time. Nothing could be further from the truth. Care, yes, but activity is the name of the game. The elderly are people too, and they love to walk and to read. They devour the newspapers and magazines. They love to discuss and debate. They love to be active and get the most out of life. It is true that some of us lack in physical capabilities, but what is lost there is often made up in mental abilities. The elderly, now listen to this, the elderly are not a bunch of physically decrepit psychological misfits. Amen? Good. They are people who love life, who socialize, who enjoy a joke, and know what they like and dislike. Plus they have a wealth of knowledge and experience to offer. Some forgetfulness may be in the mix, but I know people in their 40s who cannot remember names and faces or telephone numbers. Yet I know seniors who can. It is not solely an age thing. So folks, don't write us old folks off, though we are finished. We may have reached our best before date, but our shelf life has not expired. We are not yet done with life. It is true that we may not be able to run the 100-yard dash as fast as we once could, but bring on a Scrabble challenge and that may be a different story.